flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Bryce. All right. William Green.
Here.
Greg Clinton is not here yet as of yet. Pam Streeter is here. Rex Miller is here. And then formally, we have Jody. And then we have Stephen Boyd. We have a quorum. All right, so last week, City Council.
Yeah.
Yeah, last week, City Council. We received that documentation that we then sent out to all of you guys of notes that came out of the joint meeting in August, which we had never seen before. And so, you didn't get them last week, so you didn't get to sit there and watch me go.
No,
Yeah,
we had another prior engagement last week.
that I got to sit there and say, yeah, I've never seen these notes before. So let me read them real quick and tell you, oh, look, we did a couple of things on it. Yay! But in that council meeting, we also finally passed the enacting of the district overlays, and then we enacted the downtown district overlay. It's just basically a blank slate. Council then decided that we needed to dig further into what other overlays would be needed based off of our comprehensive plan. So what your packet had is basically the different suggestions that were made in the comprehensive plan. Now, I am going to caveat that with, we know that comprehensive plans are basically a lot of cutting and pasting. And while they are not necessarily 100% personalized for each city, so we do need to kind of think through these things and say, what are the overlays that we really need and want to protect? And the example that I keep giving everybody is some of the residential overlays where R1 by the state of Texas is allowed to have short-term rentals. But when we really look at where our R1s are, some of them, we just don't make sense to have a short-term rental in it. We want to keep it less tourism, more residential area. And so placing some overlays in those places will help us with that, such as we don't think that there should ever be a short-term rental next to the high school, elementary school area. That whole residential area, it's not a tourism area, there's no point in it.
But being as that said, isn't all short-term rentals or Airbnbs, aren't they under SUPs?
Well, if they've come through,
Right.
Yes.
So
Proper
that
channels.
more or less governs where that's the starting place. They gotta get that procedure before they can do it anyway. Regardless whether they're in an overlay or not, wherever they're at, they have to.
They
do
will
that.
still be required to have the special use.
So therefore, I don't see an overlay everywhere.
Well, because of the way, and Stephen, this is where I am really, really glad you're here with us. Bestie. From my understanding, yes, you are correct. When they submit an SUP, the council can say yes or no. But from a standpoint of, if we say this particular residential area is not going to have it, it prevents them even going forward and submitting and paying for an SUP fee to just be told no. So it's not, it gives us some extra regulation that protects council from precedent setting.
Greg, can you put your speaker on? Thank you.
So if we put an overlay in and say that this is a residential zone overlay, or name it something, and say in this overlay district, there will be no short-term rentals. We save people money by not having to pay for the fees for the SUP. We also, from a development standpoint, are ensuring that there are homeowners who aren't selling their properties with the idea that they can become a short-term rental and then find out that they can't. Or people aren't buying properties and learning they can't be an SUP. And so it just kind of, it takes a lot of the decision, I don't want to say it takes the decision, it does take the decision-making out of council's hands. And it is something that council asked for. So it's not that we're trying to restrict things, it's that we're trying to make sure that we're protecting certain areas that, and as a developer is looking, or venture capitalist money is coming in, or an individual is coming in, for example, the Red House right next to the Citizen Center, that they stated we bought that specifically to be a short-term rental. Well, if they're in an overlay district that prevents short-term rentals, that won't happen. They won't then come back to us and go, well, we thought we could do it because state law says we can do it. And now you're saying no.
Was it gonna overlay, is it gonna cover from what you're saying? I don't see anything in here that tells me all that.
No, that's right, no,
Prohibited
because this
should
is just concept.
So you just can't, I mean, to me, we're putting the cart before the horse here.
Well, we're gonna pick where.
Okay.
So the idea is that we're gonna look at some maps and say, okay, what is one of the areas that's a residential zoned area that we want to look at and say, hey, is there any reason that we would want this neighborhood to have some additional protection? That it doesn't become a, well, so-and-so is my friend or my neighbor, and so, yeah, I'm gonna let them do it, so I'm gonna vote yes on an SUP. When the overall goal is to drive areas to be more residential versus tourism.
I have a copy of the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan.
So when you, this is really hard, hang on, let me,
What are you looking at?
well, I wanna actually get into our map, hang on. But to
Are
do
you
that,
looking at this thing here or a different map?
yeah,
This map,
well, kind of,
kind of.
hang on.
What page is that on, Rex?
It's on page 50. Well, I just went and pulled up the comprehensive business plan.
It's on, I show it.
On your thing here, yeah. For me, I'm just,
He's in the plan itself, so.
the graphic, how'd you get the good graphics? Yeah, right.
Oh, it's really blurry.
Yeah. So I got the real graphics.
No.
Now, if you go to the city website and go to planning and zoning and go to mapping,
Yeah,
You can download it.
yeah, because that's what,
right.
Okay, all right, that one, that part there. Is that in the comprehensive?
No, so you have to go to the glenrosetexas.org.
Okay.
I'll share with you.
Okay, thank you.
And then we go to building and planning, and then city maps. No, city mapping. And that,
City maps, and then I've got FEMA scaled,
go to mapping, sorry, go back up to the mapping.
city mapping.
And then scroll all the way down, click on that accept.
Okay.
And then now if we're gonna pull this up, go to layers over there, right in the middle.
Got it.
You say
And
maps or mapping?
mapping.
Mapping,
Now go to planning in those drop downs and hit zoning.
Okay.
And then
And
do
then
a
refresh.
refresh map at the bottom. I don't think you got it, no. Hang on. So you want to go to here,
yep.
zoning,
Oh,
and then you need to go,
There's refresh. Oh,
no, you've got an
that's-
actual item
Oh,
refresh
got it.
down on lower.
Find it.
It should be right here at the end of the, so I think you need to be scrolling in that box.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go, refresh map,
Got it. All right, we're here.
okay? So that. Have to get closer. Yeah. There. Pull it around, we can use things. So at the top, if you scroll up, so if you use the hand, that will let you move the map.
Mhm.
The plus sign lets you expand into an area, the minus brings it back out narrower.
I can do that just by pinching.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
okay.
All right.
So in this, yellow is our residential zones,
Okay.
okay? So when you look at the far yellow side up in this area,
So on Texas Drive,
well, that's actually,
this,
so that's 144. So that big yellow area here, that one.
on this one?
No, I'm looking at that area right over
Oh,
there.
that's on the other side of the golf course then, isn't it?
Right.
This is the golf course.
That's the golf course. Okay. So a concept of what should be near the golf course is, does it need the comprehensive plan idea is that the underlying zoning isn't really the modern way of planning a city. And that everything truly belongs in overlays because you have, you can then build rules that cross underlying zoning, but that help that particular area of a town develop into what you want that area to be. So, for example, if I'm sitting here saying, okay, golf course, the things we would want near a golf course, well, we want hotels over there. We want restaurants over there. We want it to be a kind of an entertainment-y area. So would we create kind of an entertainment overlay in that area so that we can encourage development of those types in that area?
Instead of a car wash.
One way of looking at it. When you go and look up Texas Drive in the whole amphitheater area, we have a huge residential.
Yep.
That, yeah, the short-term rentals being right next to the amphitheater, okay, that's fine. They're already up there. It's a major tourist draw with potential to be a bigger tourist draw, hopefully. And so having the housing up there being allowed to be short-term rentals makes sense. But when we come back down and we're looking at the area right next to, behind Dairy Queen, right next to the school, kind of right around, crap, I can't even think of the stupid road now, Stadium Drive and all of that. It's school and residential. We don't necessarily want a whole ton. There isn't a reason for tourism to sit in that zone. So we create an overlay in that area.
It's Maryland Drive down to there.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, Mary Lynn, over by the appraisal district office. So creating these overlays lets us kind of help guide developers into saying, what is it you want to bring to town? Well, let me take you to the area that is best served for that. And then we don't end up with things smack in the middle of places that we look at it and go, why is that there? That's the goal. So it's not just to restrict things, but it is also to encourage development in the right place. Which is the whole thing we've said all along, is growth is gonna happen. We can't stop the growth, but we can at least put the growth in the right areas. And so we've tried it through the schedule of uses and the zoning, but we still run into problems with that because we said a RV park could be in a B2. Well, that's right in the middle of 67. Okay, somebody picked up the phone and called and said, well, I want to buy that land right there and make it into an RV storage thing. And we're like, is that really what we want somebody to drive down 67 and see in the middle of our downtown, not our historic downtown, but the middle of our town?
Yep.
So there's only so many things that we can do, because if we say RV parks aren't allowed in any B2, well, we have, or a car wash is not allowed in any B2. We have areas we would want that,
Right.
but the underlying zoning, the B2 is a little bit of everywhere around town. And so we can't necessarily control, like, look at all that yellow. You know, we're willing to do some things over here, but not over here. And so the overlays let us have a little bit more pinpointed control. Does that make sense? Am I stating this right?
Mhm.
In your opinion, Stephen?
It would help guide businesses
Right,
to the part of town where we're all comfortable with them being.
right. So it's kind of the newer fashion of zoning, is calling them overlay districts, because the state regulated a whole lot of things out of the base zoning that we're not allowed to do anymore. But the overlay districts let us have very specific parameters to that niched area.
Okay. So just as a reference point, the yellow is residential,
Yes.
the green is
B2.
Two.
B2, the pink is,
R4,
that's, okay, so that's the
multifamily stuff.
multifamily.
The
got it.
brown is B1.
And there's two browns, two different browns.
Yeah, the darker brown would be R3.
Okay. Got it.
But being
R1 is
that,
R4.
You have industrial.
What are you thinking?
being that said, what we're discussing or what you're talking about is R1 is the yellow. And you're basically talking about the overlay to control the short-term rentals.
Well, that's one possible overlay. What I wanted to kind of get from all of us tonight is conceptually, what kinds of things are we wanting to see? So from a developer standpoint, when we go back to that comprehensive plan and they talk about, okay, well, there was a desire for the character frameworks. So looking at the floodplain, what do we want to do in the floodplain? What kind of development do we want to allow in the floodplain? Because the floodplain crosses R1s, B1s, B2s, B3s, are just all over the board. So if we were to look at the floodplain and create a overlay district specific to the floodplain, what are the types of things we would want there? So that when we can say, hey, there are certain things you need to do to meet FEMA standards, but you can put an RV park in a floodplain. That would be a great place for it. But we can't do that right now because we don't have the right things in place to encourage that.
What would the overlay override to make that happen, Pam? I don't understand that concept.
Okay, so the base zoning, B1, B2, R1, R2, all that is right here. An overlay will cross into, and it could cross multiple of those B1. It could be a B1 and an R1 all at the same time. And we draw a parameter around it and say, okay, that's a overlay district. The way that the overlay district is we then write pretty much a schedule of use, but it could also have some architecture standards. It can have some other types of standards in it. And that if there is a conflict between the underlying base, so in a R1, you're not allowed to do this, but in this particular floodplain, no, it would be the other way around. In an R1, you're allowed to do this, but in this particular overlay district, you can't. So we enacted the downtown district at the last council meeting. We had all those conversations about it. One of the topics that we're gonna talk about tonight is, okay, now that that's done, what do we want that to look like? And council has provided some ideas and said, here's some architecture things that you're gonna need to have your buildings look appropriate to the time and the buildings around it. So not just historic preservation stuff, but hey, like when Jeff Garrett, the architect, built his building right there on the square, he built it so that it blended in to the buildings next to him. We can encourage that type of things within the overlay district. We can also say, okay, in this downtown district, we want more, we want for developers to look at it as entertainment. And so our open land, hey developer, you want to build a movie complex, you want to build an amusement park, you want to build
Bowling alley.
a bowling alley. This would be the district that the overlay that would be the right place for that. Because it's not now just the downtown square, but it's all the way down to Hereford. It's everything within that area. And there's open land in that area. It's not a lot, but there's stuff. But as a developer, I can come in and look at it and say, well, this is what I want to develop. Where would I best fit in that town? We can have it that you have to be a locally owned shop to be in the downtown district, that you can't be a part of a chain.
Yep.
There's things like that we can do. We can say, okay, Starbucks, whatever's the next thing. So Chick-fil-A. I don't want a Chick-fil-A on my downtown square. Okay, maybe I do because I like Chick-fil-A, but it's not appropriate in our downtown district. We're trying to keep that very much of
Right.
the tourist draw.
Right.
And the Chick-fil-A just isn't going to do that. But we look up at 67 or down 144 going down past David's and all that. Okay, Chick-fil-A makes sense over there. So we create these zones, these areas that say these things are allowed over here, but you can't do it over here.
So we can expand the use,
Mm-hmm.
or we can
Narrow it.
narrow
Correct.
the use. So we can go either way. And the way you're identifying it is through a kind of like floodplain. So as you said, floodplains cross all kinds of things.
Right.
So I'm already going to plan a RV park on my floodplain after today.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
And for the
now,
record, because it's being recorded, I'm not going to do a
an RV park on your
Yeah.
floodplain. Good to know.
Yes.
I'm not either.
Oh, you got a floodplain too.
I am floodplain.
Oh, you are? The whole thing is floodplain?
My entire property is in the base flood elevation.
Wow.
It's fun.
Yeah. Wow, interesting.
So, the idea, and I'm this is just a very high level conceptual concepts that we're just trying to kind of think this through.
Yep.
And again, utilizing the feedback that was captured from our community in the comprehensive plan. So it's not me just saying we should do this. It's, hey, let's look at what was apparently, supposedly, perhapsly, I don't know, said in all those community workshops of what did the town want to see, and figure out how we can kind of lay into that and have it make sense so that we're actually executing a plan. And I know, and I'm going to remember a conversation that you and I had about the original comprehensive plan and how horribly that whole thing went.
In terms of community participation, or did some consulting firm just go out and do it and then handed it to us?
I'm gonna not get into those comments, but that it wasn't, the end result was trying to make Glen Rose look like, South Lake.
Oh,
And that's not
Yeah.
Glen Rose.
yeah, we used to live in South Lake. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah, it's not Glen Rose. That's not our personality. That's
Right.
not our, I mean, when you read our vision statement,
Right.
the small town charm.
Right.
So we want areas of town to be allowed to have metal buildings and
And see, and when they started this time, and I asked you and everybody I asked, when I was talking overlay, where's this gonna be? Well, this was gonna be like from this side of the Methodist church to the other side of you or something other,
Right.
just gonna be downtown. I thought, okay, that's good. That really needs to help that. Maybe that will help downtown.
Right.
But when you're talking a blanket overlay of the entire city, I see a lot of problems.
well, we're not talking about a blanket overlay over the entire city. We're talking about multiple variations of overlays over places in the city that we are directing people to for the purposes of, we want that part of the town to have this. Part of it is also going to be some of the feedback that came out of our joint meeting of looking at complete street designs, looking at how we get desired housing and mixed use types to meet the needs. We have to put things into overlays, because if I do it just and say, okay, you can have mixed use housing in any R1, then they can put it smack in the middle of a neighborhood where you've got single family homes everywhere. So we don't want that. What we want to do is say that type of housing belongs in this section of town, and it may be part R1, like see right over here, it may be right over here. Okay, so there's some R1, but we don't want that sitting right over here. So it just gives us some control, and I don't want to say control. It guides.
Just be a guide.
Right.
It guides how things and where things get developed or redeveloped. And that's our biggest thing right now. It's not necessarily that it's about what open land we have. It's about people selling the land that already might have a building on it and watching it get destroyed so somebody else can put something up.
Now, to William's point, is there a way to do like an 80-20? You know, what are the 20% of concerns that hit 80% of the issues, and begin looking at those first?
So first I want to state that all we're trying to do tonight is, one, understand.
Sure.
Two, look at the feedback from the comprehensive plan and say, these are the things that our community said they wanted or needed. And then have us go back and not necessarily hash it out and have an answer tonight,
Sure.
but have us go back and in your own reflection and talking to your neighbors or your customers and say, hey, what do you think of this? Would this And then we come back again and we talk about it some more, and we talk about it some more, and then we come up with a plan, but we're not,
I get that, but I did hear one thing consistently is we want to preserve residential
right.
neighborhoods. So,
We do wanna make sure that that happens.
so that sounds like kind of at the top of the list.
Well, and that has come as, I mean, we've sat here and seen how many SUPs come in and people come back and go, well, I don't want that in my neighborhood.
Right.
I don't want that in my neighborhood.
Got it.
So listening to that feedback, we say, okay.
Yep.
Well, what neighborhoods do we really want to let it happen in? And what neighborhoods do we say, yeah, that really doesn't make any sense for you?
Well, based on what you've heard come up in city councils or whatever, are there some kind of common concerns that keep coming up that would be good for us to keep in mind as we think about this? Because, you know, my neighborhood's probably not going, well, my neighborhood's going through change because there's a new commercial district
Right? Coming through.
coming through.
You've got a lot of older homes back in there.
Yes, and we have Sanford and Sons too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, you
You
do.
can't discriminate there.
What's that?
You can't discriminate there.
Yeah.
No, but the idea is, okay, let's take that Biloxi Estates area and say, all right, you've got the power transfer station right there.
Right.
All right. So when we look at that and say, all right, what kind of price points right around that area are people going to be able to get for selling their property?
Yep.
And then who's going to want to build or renovate or what's going to happen there? You know, this really becomes a big question is, okay, there's a lot of houses right on that street that need to be torn down.
Oh, God, yes.
And so,
Can we make that decision tonight?
no,
Oh, sorry.
that's going to be something he gets to look at later. But
And
when
and cats, do bad houses come with cats, I guess?
Hey, it's rodent control.
Okay, yeah.
So if we just actually start right there and say, okay, when we
That's a good conversation.
when we are looking at the Biloxi Estates area right here, which is this right here.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
so you've got R1, you've got R3 and R4 in there. So when we look at that, we say, great. Does short-term rental belong there? I mean, they've had some in there at various points. It's not now, to my knowledge. There may be one house that's still that way, but they would be grandfathered in. But do we want people buying up these properties and turning them into short-term rentals? That's one question. Do we want people buying up this land, tearing down the properties and doing what with them? What would be good use of that land that our community really needs?
Just on the other side of you over there, Rex, back in there on the other side of the creek.
Mhm.
Well,
But-
we're in here.
But that's Somerville.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking there. I'm talking right there. So here is, so this is the river. So this is Biloxi Street, kind of around, that's Rex right there,
Right.
okay? But all of this, right in here.
Rex just needs to buy the rest of it.
So, yeah, so.
Yeah,
this
just like I
is
need to buy my
across-
next door neighbor. Yep, that's
yeah,
happening.
So all this here, so this is where the Davids.
So this is where we can sit here and look at this and say, hey, we really believe that this is an opportune area. There is a lot of housing in this area that is condemnable.
And then.
Well,
this-
and we've got another house that's being
here
demoed
is-
as we speak
Yeah,
in that
so,
area.
so this is a prime area for us to look
This
at
is
and
across
say,
the
okay,
highway.
here's an overlay district for this area. we already know that this is worker housing or has been in the past where our lesser income people live. Go ahead.
Let me ask this. In an area like that right there with what you just said was in there, and someone needs to buy it, whether they're gonna make a development out of it or whatever, tear
Right.
down a dozen homes in there and do something with it. And I know, I understand the concept of the short-term rentals, but if you put an overlay in there with not knowing what's gonna be involved in that, I'm just throwing this out here to
No, go
ask the
ahead.
question. What is that gonna do to deter it, or is it gonna help the sale of that property?
I believe it can actually help sell the property. And the reason why is that we're providing guidance on finding the right developer who will work in there.
Because it's already in despair, it's in bad
It
shape.
it is.
You know?
So if we come in with an overlay on it and say, this is ripe for development, and we say, this, we will work with somebody. If you come in and start looking at this land and you're looking to develop,
But those are individually owned, that's not a whole.
they are, no, they'd have to go buy a bunch of stuff. But no, but there's a couple of people who own a lot of that. But the idea would be that we would say, hey, this is a rich development area that we want to see focused on, I'm gonna call it our worker housing. And so then we can give them guidelines and say, to do that, it needs to comply with these types of things. We can say, hey, you can't pick the apartments. Well, we all got snookered. The apartments up by Holiday Inn and how they showed us those pictures and then.
Not that we can make a decision here, the council's gonna make the decision,
Right.
we're gonna make a recommendation. That's why I said, well, go the cart before the horse, not knowing what all is gonna be prohibited or accepted. How can you make an overlay until you know that?
So we have to make an overlay in order to create what we want to see prohibited and
I've seen
accepted.
that, you make the overlay and then all this other stuff gets thrown in there, nobody has any control over it.
No, that's
The
not.
property owner or anybody else, after
Okay,
it's done.
okay, so first off, any overlay that goes in grandfathers who's already there,
I've been there too.
okay? Secondly, this is going to be a very collaborative idea. So we're not defining overlays right now,
I know.
okay? What we're looking at is
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm
what
just
is our
saying
need, well, no,
I
but
can
here's.
see how this can,
You're right. It absolutely could become a nightmare. But that's why
but you can't change it once you get started with it.
yes, you can.
So,
Everything can be changed.
so to understand this, this is restricted commercial right here. This is restricted commercial, and then behind it, all these little plots, that's
Right.
single, multi, all those little brown spots.
Correct.
Or that, okay, got it.
So I'm just looking at that saying, in my opinion, when we look at the comprehensive plan and we say, okay, what do we do with existing neighborhoods? So the existing neighborhood character areas protect existing residential areas by preventing development that is not compatible with the character of existing homes and neighborhoods. The friendly and close-knit feeling of Glenrose is influenced by existing neighborhoods, which are not isolated estates, but rather share at least one common street with their neighbors. So land use would be residential, parks, trails, open space, and passive recreation. Things like limiting buildings to 2 stories, preserving new development or redevelopment should blend with existing neighborhoods and preserve the existing look and feel. So think about it. So I'm going back to the example of the apartments up on the hill by Holiday Inn. They came in here and they asked us to rezone their land, and they sold us a beautiful story, and you know that. And once we granted them that permission to change their land, they swapped out and did something entirely different that is excuse my language, but ugly. With an overlay, we actually can stop the but ugly. We can't just using regular zoning. And I'm saying we give character assignments. Not saying you must have your light exactly here on your, next to your front door, which must be this, but it's character assignments. It's saying that particular area of town has older, more historic ranch houses. We want to keep that. We don't want a big, ginormous Victorian mansion being put in the middle, you know, somebody buying up 5 of the lots and building an ultra modern. Well, we can't control that with the base level zoning, but we can control some of that with the overlays. So we're trying to do this from a standpoint of how would we want to see our town look in 10 years?
Yeah, I understand all that. I'm skeptic of you get an overlay and then you start putting stuff in there that I won't or you won't, but he may not need or she may not need.
Well, that's why there's public
Because it's their
hearings.
property, not.
You're right, okay.
You know?
Fair statement.
And when we say what the town wants, I understand what the town wants. But we need to also keep in mind the property owners, the people that own this property that are paying these taxes.
Okay, but it is not, having an overlay isn't going, it truly is going to help them sell. Because it's going to help them filter out the developers who,
Yeah, let me flip that on you.
thank you.
So, let's say we've got a residential area with a certain character, certain, let's say, single-story ranch houses. Now, someone comes in and builds something that doesn't fit that at all, but I own the property, I've had it, I want to sell it, so I'm going to sell to somebody, but they build something that doesn't fit the character, it devalues every other piece of property on there. Because somebody's looking for something and they say, well, this would be, oh, that thing really stands out. I don't want to move to this property. So I see the value, even if it's just an exercise of going through and looking at, well, what's the character of this area? What's kind of the general kind of house or kind of buildings in this area? And is this an area that we want to preserve that continuity, that identity, or is it something that, it's free for all? So your argument of somebody having a piece of property, wanting to get the value of it, and they have the right to do that, do they also have the right to sell it to somebody who's going to devalue my property who's right next to you?
Well, I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm thinking outside the box, way outside the box we're just under the assumption that nobody's going to do that. You're not going to paint a house yellow on a street with a bunch of brick houses. That's my assumption. But
Okay, but we've seen that happen.
I know, I understand.
Right.
That's what
We
happens all
have
the
seen
time.
that happen a lot.
You go up into North Dallas.
I
We were
understand.
up near North Park, and some of these older neighborhoods with 3-bedroom homes. You have some stupid young rich jerk buy 4 or 5 lots and build this monstrosity modern, black and gray built. I just saw one.
Doesn't fit in.
And you're driving through and you could just kind of do a neck jerk and say, that certainly doesn't fit here. But someone had the money, they had the right, but they're not playing as good neighbors. And maybe that's an ethos. What would a good neighbor
Yeah.
do in this situation? What would be fair? What would be a good neighbor? I can optimize my return. I could sell my property and divide it up into multiple lots and get a lot out of it. But that's not being a good neighbor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking through steps. we have an R1 and we're talking about, okay, this is the ranch out homes and it needs to stay that way. What do we do? We go through every one of these R1s and we say, okay, this is a ranch, this is colonial. this
No,
is-
no, no,
What
I
do
mean,
we
no,
do?
no, that we're not getting that specific.
Okay, we can't use yellow paint because nobody likes it.
No, that's,
It's not an HOA.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're
that's what
not
it
that,
sounds like.
but that's not what we're at.
Okay. I'm just trying to
It's
figure this
basically
out.
preventing that.
Oh, wow. Where'd you find that?
Googled it.
The phone.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to stop.
So it would be like a lot size or you restrict it some way like that.
So you can change some lot sizes
Well, all
from.
I've got to say about this is this guy's got plenty of money.
You're right.
Go build it somewhere else.
And he probably has an electric fence or
Well,
something
you
that if
know.
a kid walks across his lawn, he gets zapped.
You know what his neighbors over there.
But that's basically why
Yeah.
it's trying to prevent.
It's it's actually trying. So exactly everything that you hated about the comprehensive plan in 09, where they're trying to stepford us.
Well, yeah,
Okay, this actually lets us prevent that.
but I'm not seeing that yet.
Okay, well that's because we're still very
I
conceptual.
know, but you want to do this without
No.
seeing that.
I'm not wanting to do anything. I want us to talk. I'm not there is nothing that is happening tonight.
I know.
Tonight, my goal is one, let's talk about what this stuff can be done, what it is.
Right.
What types of things we would want to look for.
What's that?
It was to stop here. You
Oh,
see where this is
2010.
at?
Oh,
And it was to go all the way down through town.
okay,
This was to come all the way out. This is 144 out there where
Right.
the 7-Eleven is.
sure,
And then back around in through here. This was in March 2010. I didn't really have a problem with this. If
Sure.
you look at this. But this is what came in. Now look at that. Tell me what the difference is.
It goes further out.
It goes all the way.
it goes all the way out,
It takes
okay,
everything in on this side, on the
Yeah.
downtown. And that made a lot of difference to these people here,
it does.
a bunch.
No, again, I'm with
It's kinda
you,
quiet down here.
Yeah, I'm just listening.
here. Take a
So
look.
this is 2010. Right. So this was proposed, this is what happened.
My historian. I really do love your husband.
So
This
what year are
was
we
on
talking
this,
to?
this was on this,
Uh-huh,
this was prohibited,
okay,
just on this,
sure.
okay? But when it changed to that and this stayed, what do you think that did to all these people?
Yeah, no, it's a problem.
A lot.
But I don't,
For me, for one, that would be
Well,
like when
listen,
come down there and tell you, you gotta close this kitchen, fam, you can't have this
I
kitchen no
understand,
more.
we're not looking to do it like that. This is way too broad. But I'm really glad you have this.
What year was this? Same?
That's
same?
probably still 2010.
Okay.
It stayed.
That would have been coming out of the comprehensive
March
plan.
2010.
But the
Yeah.
updated comprehensive plan was 2022 or
2023,
2023?
The old one was,
or 24 actually, I think is when I got it.
Right.
Yeah, the other one's 09, so that was some of the work that was done out of it. So I get where your concerns are, I truly do.
This is original, this is the original of the people. After that came out, that was in, there was, what does it say down here?
Well, affected, it would have been affected.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm gonna say right off the bat, I think what they did was too large. And that we need smaller sections of things.
We got the
it affected a lot of
Yeah.
businesses.
Well, and I think
It's
that's,
great.
but you're
Yeah.
right, and that's part of our whole thing is we don't,
And they
I'm
were
trying
just
to
gonna
figure out
do
how,
it.
I'm gonna try to figure out how to say this. The goal now is not to harm our local businesses, our locally owned businesses. Our goal now is not to overly burden our residents and our landowners. Our goal is that as people sell, and we have seen a whole lot of kids of some of the older residents say, I don't want anything to do with this, and have some developer say, I'll pay $1 million, or I'll pay, $100,000 for something that's worth 20, or, what did we decide Starbucks land sold for? Some ridiculous amount of money for that land. We want to protect the integrity of Glenrose. And we have a better chance of doing that utilizing overlay districts than we do base zoning. We don't want to get out of hand. We don't want to be, Nazi. We don't want to look like, South Lake or Stepford Wives type things. So that's not the goal. But the goal is that as this land is becoming more and more available, because the citizens who own this land are getting older. No offense. Y'all are dying on us.
We're on the downhill side.
And your heirs aren't always as in.
Yeah, that's what you see a lot of times, right?
Yeah, you take the WK Gordon Ranch, all these ranches, all these
Yeah.
subdivisions, just because not the first generation, not the people that owned it for
No.
50 years.
Right.
It's the next generation or the generation after that.
You see it in
It's
cities
the kids
too,
and
right?
grandkids.
Kids aren't moving back, so they rent it out and it's getting beat down over.
Exactly.
It goes out. Yeah, I get it.
So our goal by utilizing overlays is to actually protect the character of our town. Not to overly burden it, not to regulate the hell out of it, but to say, okay, we know things are going to change. So let us help guide that change so that it is the most beneficial to the community. That's the goal.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with the concept of it.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the implementation, but I do like the concept.
The implementation is going to be a hell of a lot of work. I'm going to say that. But we're going to do this very slow and very thoughtful.
And then chunks.
And in
Part of that goes back to starting with the low-hanging fruit, the things that most people are in agreement on, to get a feel for what the process is.
so that's my idea.
Okay.
Is start something very simple. Something that is not controversial, something that is going to be some wins, and we test some things out.
Yeah. Okay.
But before we even do that, what I kind of want, and this is why I really need you, is what we're really trying to preserve is our history.
No,
And so-
I agree with that.
So what we're trying to do is let's step back to when Glenrose, I don't know how many years ago, but what was it? I mean, we grew, we became what we are now, but what is it about our history? What sections of town do we want to kind of make sure, hey, there's something special about that. Let's make sure that's protected. And we can do that looking at overlays, and we can't do that looking at base level zoning. So for me, I look at the Paluxy Estates area, I look at Wolf City area, I look over by the school areas, and I say, okay, those are important neighborhoods. All up and down Bernard Street, that's important historical stuff. All that housing that goes back up behind like the fires, all of that stuff. Let's make sure that it's the right things getting developed there. The right type of housing, the right type of businesses. We have a vape shop that went in a block from the junior high. Junior high.
Oh, my God.
We sure did.
Yeah, just happened
Mhm.
because we couldn't stop it.
Is that over by Chachi's or used to be Beehive?
It's one block off on English Street,
Like right behind the
so behind where the
Starbucks.
Starbucks is
Yeah,
going in.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So
Used to be a music store.
we can sit here and look at that kind of say, do we want that type of business right next to one of our schools?
I think that building was some music.
That was an accounting office
Yeah,
as well.
but there's
There was a
nothing,
music store for that.
there is nothing in state law that gives us any limits of protecting our schools from that type of a shop. So if we create an overlay around our schools and say this type of business cannot exist next to our school, we can prevent that from happening again, or worse.
Gosh.
That's the goal. Protect areas of town that have important needs, so that we keep that need not the way it is, but not too far away from what it currently is. And look at where we want to protect a little bit harder to prevent certain types of businesses from going into areas that we're just like, no, that's wrong. A vape shop a block from the junior highs.
Yep.
I'm
bummed.
Jody got the call about it. She goes, well, and I'm like, what? And she goes, yep, couldn't do anything about it. We didn't
Zoned
have it
correctly.
zoned right. And I can't change the zoning because that particular zoning was B2.
Business, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a business, the vape shop's allowed, because if we said you can't have a vape shop in a B2 at all, then we would have nothing on Highway 67, because Highway 67 is B2.
Okay, I get it. Yeah. So we would start out with an area and we'd say, okay, we're gonna look at this. We want this to be, we may not even know what we want it to be, but we know what we don't want it to be.
Correct.
And that's
Yeah,
where
we
we
don't want a
start.
liquor store
We don't want
and a
liquor.
vape shop.
Right.
Vape shop, we don't
Yeah.
want tattoo parlor.
That's the goal.
Okay. And then we
Well, that's basically what they did here, if you've seen that.
Well, yes,
Oh,
but we're
very
gonna do it a little bit more thoughtful.
we just start area by area and say, okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I will tell you, when you go look at just about every other town, city, this is where they're moving to.
Yeah.
All over the country,
Once
in
that's big
reality.
on it.
Yeah, all over the country on it. So the key is from my what I kind of wanted to get out of today was, one, just making sure we understood the goal, which I think we're now there. And then two, coming back and saying, what are some of the needs? What are some of the, what are key things we want to see happening?
We'll use a scalpel and not an axe.
Right,
Well, and it's similar to what you would do to protect the natural habitat or
exactly.
something like that.
So when I sit here, and again, we started with the whole downtown thing, and we want this downtown, this new district that's from Hereford down to Storybrooke, up and around to Whiskey Woods. We want to make sure that something new, not modern, is
Right.
built there. We don't want modern in our historical downtown area, right?
I wouldn't think that, just thinking, like I said a while ago, Same difference with
So we
the,
don't want a Forever 21 shop?
yeah,
down
who's
here?
gonna come in and tear half a city block
McCall's.
out and put something in that doesn't fit?
A lot of people.
Well,
A
see, I'm
lot of
from
people.
Glen Rose, we don't do that.
I know you are, and I appreciate that. And look, I adopted Glen Rose. You
Yeah.
cannot say that I have not
What did you say?
integrated myself. I mean, God, what else?
You can say that, but how many other people can say that?
Yeah, I'm still not allowed near the table of knowledge at Debbie's.
You're not. Well, buy them coffee. They'll let you sit
Oh,
down.
did well if I buy coffee?
No, they won't.
No one told me that.
No, they won't.
Yeah.
Well, you might have to buy breakfast.
Yeah. Is the table,
Multiple
when's the
days.
actual table of knowledge moved with the move over?
I don't know, probably. If I was
I'm
guessing.
really hoping that he picked that up and moved the actual table over
Where? Oh, from
to its new location.
whose new location?
Debbie's.
And they moved?
Yeah, out at Travel Villa.
They're now at the Travel Plaza at the
Yeah,
Exxon station on
Travel
144
Plaza.
across from the 7-Eleven.
That's what that's, okay.
Property
They've
was
just got to
purchased.
sign this
Oh.
as breakfast up.
Okay, got it. Well, that was a good move on their part.
Oh yeah, much better, much better.
Interesting. Got it.
I'm the new guy who knew that. What's
Yeah,
up with
well-
that?
Yeah. When's Starbucks opening up?
27.
27th.
Just 10 days on their sign today. So.
Yeah.
10 days
Yesterday.
counting down.
And the day before.
And who's going in across from Sexton?
That's
Be
baked,
Oh, Baked.
the
Okay,
pastry shop.
great. Oh, that's a good move too.
Okay,
See, I've
I
been
think-
out of town a lot,
I get it.
So he's catching up.
catching up, right?
And have y'all been through Godly lately? It's all their businesses are just metal buildings.
Mhm.
Is that the look that
If you want, probably not.
So in parts, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. In our downtown, in our historic area, I have a problem with it.
Now, question for planning and zoning. As businesses, along 67, there was talk at one time of having people bring their signage up to code and their buildings up to code.
Code enforcement, yes,
Enforcement, yeah. Is that Steve?
that is gonna be a statement.
All right. Good, thank you.
So just as an example, and I'm not saying we're trying to be, but Waco. Okay? Waco has a Brazos River Overlay Corridor District. The primary purpose of these provisions for the development in the Brazos River Corridor District is to ensure the development at the center for quality recreation, convention, tourism, housing, and office facilities. The regulations are designed to protect the special environment character of the corridor to promote continued private and public investment. Additional development standards and design guidelines for the district are intended to preserve the distinct character and natural beauty of the Brazos River corridor and to maintain its charm and atmosphere.
They're doing a good job.
They are. They have a college and university district. The college and university district is to facilitate development which complements the physical and social characteristics of a higher education institute and the surrounding neighborhood. Such characters include landscaping, architecture, open space, pedestrian access, transportation patterns. The regulations of this district aim to alleviate traffic and parking congestion, provide incentives for high-quality student housing, and protect existing single-family homes. The Neighborhood Conservation Overlay. The Neighborhood Conservation District is intended to encourage the continued vitality of older residential areas of the city to promote the development of a variety of new housing of contemporary standards in existing neighborhoods and to maintain a desirable residential environment and scale. Additional site development standards applicable to the district are intended to promote infill development of a compatible residential scale and to encourage provision of adequate open space and site amenities.
Is there a Chip and Joanna district?
No.
It's the entire city.
Yeah, they can get whatever they want.
The downtown overlay district is intended to provide for a mix of land use that promotes a downtown where people can live, work, and play within its boundaries, creating a place that values the architectural history of our community while encouraging the best of contemporary design to encourage human interaction through creating a safe and attractive pedestrian-friendly environment and to promote the good health and safety and general welfare of property users surrounding the downtown area.
Now, they're developing just north of the river, and that's very intentional. You see what they're
Mhm.
doing.
Mhm.
It's a very intentional, well curated
Right.
design.
Just look at what Baylor's done.
So the LaSalle Avenue corridor, the purpose of the LaSalle Avenue corridor district is to preserve and enhance a business district that is rich in history, historical architecture, business activity, and significance as both a destination and a connector. It further aims to guide LaSalle Avenue's development into an area that serves existing and future businesses and property owners, both Waco residents and visitors, and both I can't even say it now.
Vehicular.
Thank you. And pedestrian travelers.
Yeah.
That's just Waco. I mean, we're not Waco, but it gives you a better idea of what they're doing. Okay? And so when you look at their citywide overview map, you can see that they've got the Brazos River corridor is this gray area. The Sanger neighborhood is over here. The West End district is over here. So the entire city isn't laying in an overlay.
Right.
It's just targeted areas that they want to make sure they're taking care of. Does that help?
Yes, I don't have a problem with the overlay particularly, it's just where you're putting it and what.
Well, that's, but no, I got that.
Because this is not gonna be good for a blanket.
No,
Okay.
but we don't, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I want us to step back and really think, what are certain areas of town that we want to make sure that if people sell their properties and developers or new residents or say that's California.
Right.
What do we want it to be? What do we want to protect?
Well, I think it should start like they started with the downtown area. And I have no
Okay.
problem with that.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea and I'm for that. But when you start moving to the other directions all over town, I think you really need to have a lot more information for the public, for the landowners, for people to know what this is gonna cover
Absolutely.
before it's done.
Well, by law, we have to.
See, and I have a problem with that.
By law, we have to include the people and talk to them and have meetings.
You're
Before
gonna give
it's
me a
done?
sentence before you find me guilty. That's the same thing.
That's not what we're,
Yeah. It's,
no, I've already talked to city council about holding some workshops with town members.
okay, they're good. I think that's a good idea. Not with just town members, but I'm talking about property owners.
Yeah,
And
no, no,
business
no,
owners.
business owners.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I don't,
Well, let's,
That wasn't really done last time. There was boards appointed and whatnot, and this was all done or tried to be done. Or it was done.
So yes, we want to make sure that this is a very open
there's a
dialogue.
house right here.
We want their feedback. We want to
This is
hear
pharmacy.
their concerns.
You can't really just have a meeting at high school and ask everybody. what
No,
they
you
want.
can't. No,
You
it's,
like this picture or this picture? Do
No.
you want a swimming pool or what? I mean, what are you gonna
no,
get?
so we've got to give, so in my opinion, the best way that we can have a very open dialogue is to lay out what they were attempting to do but didn't do well, is we got to give some framework. Give some examples and say, hey, as using our example of, right across the river for me is what is it we want that area to look like in the future? And that's the key. It's not about what it looks like today, it's about what does it look like for the future. And so if we're looking at this saying, we want to make sure that we're keeping an area of town that has more affordable housing,
So you're gonna shut your RV park down.
that has more affordable housing, that has the ability to, that keeps a particular character, that we can look at that area and say, hey, you know what, when we look at setbacks and when we look at lot sizing, we can adjust it for that area without adjusting it for everywhere else. So that we can provide for tiny homes that look nice. So that people can have a nice, something to be proud of to live in. And that the neighborhood around it kind of matches. Without giving up what's already there. So, yes, there is, as I said, it's going to be very strategically done, very small chunks to address, and a lot of dialogue.
So Greg,
I promise.
why is Heritage Park zoned as B1? Oh, no? Well,
both.
it's both.
Well,
B1 and-
there's lots in front of Heritage Park that
There's
are
housing.
individually owned.
No, not on the, whatever side. So this side, so there's lots here, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no
It's
lots
across the
on this
river
side of
on the left-hand
Heritage
side.
Park and inside, into the park.
The first left. When you cross the river bridge.
Yeah, there's actually lots right there. I gotta look at it.
No, there's not.
But here, but beyond that, it doesn't,
Yeah, I walked this, there's nothing here.
okay.
Yeah, and then the road into Heritage Park, and then there's a lot, I don't know what that business is there, there's
So,
a couple lots there.
Here's what I will say.
Is this,
The last time the zoning map was touched was when Dennis was chairing P and Z. And that was about 2019. And that was the future use map, not the current zoning. I'm looking at you because you were around for all of that. So the zoning map, they did the future use map. So the zoning map that is in play today,
Needs updates.
yes.
okay,
But you can't necessarily just go in and update the zones because it's private land. So there's things that have, there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So some of that land now was county land, and so some of it was city land. Some of it, or now it's city land. Some of it is private ownership, and the zoning, God only knows when that got zoned.
got it, okay.
So
Fair
a
enough.
future use map was developed and updated in 2019 that gives guidelines of what zoning should look
Is that in the
like.
comprehensive plan?
No.
Oh, got it, okay, all right.
But that's part of the reason why this is kind of important is because some of that zoning is probably 50 years old. Some of that zoning was done 20 years ago. Some of it was done because somebody said, hey, I need it to be this. And, they just changed it without any thought of it because they did things like that back then. So part of what we're trying to do based off of what the comprehensive plan is set and what the state requires and this and that, is for us to kind of really dive into these things and try to make some more sense of it.
Well,
moving
they didn't
forward.
do that in Glen Rose. They did it over in Toller, I think, but they didn't do it in Glen Rose.
People didn't just change
No,
something because
no.
because somebody was friends with somebody and so they just changed it. No, we have a Dollar General on Austin Street that I guarantee you shouldn't have been built there. but somebody knew somebody.
Oh. Help him.
I love my town.
I do too.
I picked it, and maybe I didn't grow up here, but I blessedly am gonna end up dying here. So this, where I wanted to leave us on tonight is that this is going to be something that we are going to be touching on in all of our meetings moving forward.
Yeah, that's good.
To small scales. And this is going to be something that we're all going to have to take a chunk of at some point in time and do a little bit of research and maybe do a little polling in the area and
Yeah.
going around and talking to the residents and the business owners or something and say, hey, what do you want to see in your area? What's some of the stuff that you want to make sure
Right.
is here or not here?
Well, I appreciate it. Gives me a new lens as I'm going through Glen Rose to just
Yeah.
kind of view
So-
neighborhoods and things.
So this became, because we approved the downtown district, the concept of the downtown district, we do still have to come back through and add the things that will define what that downtown district is. And we're not doing that tonight because we need to go have more conversations. I have some things that are kind of no-brainers, especially around the architecture and building material things. But, you know, we now have Steven. He's a week and a day,
3 days.
3 days, a week and 3 days on the job. And
He's sitting upright. He's doing well.
He's thinking about putting in a 2-week notice then, because he's getting hungry. Time to go find tacos.
Dairy Queen. No, I'm sorry, it's Taco Tuesday. They have good tacos. I'm personally going to
Oh,
Mamma
it's
Mia
Wednesday.
for mine. Oh, it's Wednesday.
Yeah, we were here for Taco Tuesday too, so.
No, I'm personally going to Dairy, I'm personally going to Mamma Mia for my tacos.
Sushi
tonight.
night at Whiskey Woods.
It is.
Sushi night. Yeah.
Yeah, I already went to Whiskey Woods this week though.
Very good. Good. Well, interesting.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for
So-
all that you put into this.
so the other things that we, from a strategic standpoint and priorities, is as we're doing this, they want us to create an easy to read handout that details the desired housing, mixed use types, meeting the comprehensive plan preferences. I really think that's something you and I can work on together and then bring it to this group. Okay, that I can work on and run it with you and then bring it to this group. Okay. Got it. We need to revise our code of ordinances to include a complete street design requirements for the minimum of 8-foot sidewalks for travel along major collectors. And a lot of that's truly up on 67. We want to make sure that if anybody buys land and builds something, that they have to put a sidewalk in front of their place so that we can start connecting sidewalks and making it a little bit more
Are those
pedestrian
gonna be
friendly.
8-foot sidewalks up there? Are they that wide?
That's what the state right away
Right.
was. Yeah. So that's what that's what
It's a big sign.
it is.
That's the new one that they're going to though.
That's the state number.
8-foot state?
What's the rationale behind an 8-foot sidewalk?
You can drive a car on that.
Yeah,
Basically, if you got 2 people in wheelchairs, they're able to go
Yeah.
both directions without one having to go off the
oh,
pavement.
I didn't, yeah, we've got the whole wheelchair population here. We've got a,
Yeah, we got the one-legged guy in the wheelchair.
yeah.
Who can't walk past the planters at the Glen Hotel
Well, they
because
could
it's
just have
not
pull-outs
ADA
every so
compliant.
often and
Okay.
where you could wait.
Yeah.
We need to revise the code of ordinance and adopt a policy to promote trail-oriented development in ecological and recreational tourism by providing new incentives. That's where we're gonna come into a lot of this overlay stuff.
Okay.
Will help with that. Revise the code and ordinances to require upsizing of utilities proposed with new development in areas without existing infrastructure. So basically, when something is in the ETJ and wants to get annexed in, that when they're gonna build for the utility, that they have to build to the utility being able to continue past them. Not build for their size, but build for the bigger picture. Car washes, hey, we fixed that already. That's what we did.
No more.
No, we did not say no more. We very much said that car washes require a specific use permit. So if somebody else wants to put in a car wash, they just have to come to the council and convince them. Or they have to come to us and then go to the council.
Okay.
So we didn't say no car washes, we said justify your car wash.
That way it's not like Alvarado, two of them side by side.
Right. Which I think we also need to do for liquor stores next.
No, they all need to be lined up.
That was laid down.
Shop.
That's Addison Avenue. Revise the code of ordinances to require new developments to integrate green infrastructure and low impact development such as bioswales, rain gardens, bioretention ponds, and planter boxes to help decrease stormwater runoff. Everywhere I've lived, we had that stuff. So it just makes more sense. It helps hold the water on the property instead of sending it
Yeah, me too.
out of the property, and it becomes an attractive green feature and green space. It's just something that we want. Revise the code and ordinance to include low impact design elements with street design for improved stormwater management, blah, blah, blah. And then again, it was the short-term rental strategy, which is why I bring that up. Revise the code and ordinances to remove minimum lot sizes and require maximum densities instead, which I don't want to just do that across all the board. That's where these special use districts are going to be able to say, well, we want to do that here, but not over here. Revise the code of ordinances to limit block lengths to a maximum of 750 feet for all new developments unless prevented or restricted by environmental or safety factors. I don't know where that one came from. Adopt storefront window requirements that encourage more ground floor uses for downtown character area. So that's just some things that have come out of the comprehensive plan and come out of council that as we go through all of our various different things that we're going to be working on in 2025, we need to keep those all in mind.
Okay.
Okay. Do you still love me?
I'm here.
Okay. Just checking. On that note, is there anything else anybody wants to say?
Nope, looks like we're gonna have a good, full, productive year next year.
I do, meeting adjourned.
Yeah, I will say one other thing. We are still going back through the old ordinances, things that we've been working on and adjusting out where we are in conflict with state, rewriting things so that it's directing it to the state for the answer.
Who's reviewing that? To make sure we do that? Are you or we? I heard the word we. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So I
I'm
wanted to know
doing
which-
it. We will be assigning some responsibilities along the
I'm
line.
okay with that. I just
Careful,
wanted
you
But
can
we're
be
going to-
voluntold.
We are going to be saying, hey, this is one that we definitely need to address. We've got a lot of things. So just cleaning up our current ordinances like we did with the mobile food truck stuff, where we said, hey, don't put in health code stuff when they really need to be following the state health code stuff. So instead of having our own language that could get out of date when the state makes a change and we're not privy to the state change, just direct them to the state. And the same thing with where our fees are. If we have something that's requiring a fee in our actual ordinance, we want it to say that the fee can be found on the fee schedule, not written into the ordinance itself, because as the fee schedule changes and we don't change the ordinance, we have a conflict and we're screwed.
to.
So those are the little things
Makes sense.
that we're going to be doing along the lines too.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
That means we're
With
done.
no further business before the commission, this meeting is adjourned at 6:57.
Great. So William, it looks like you get to keep your service station.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Why would I want you to go away? You deal with my car.
And mine.
and mine.